Back when the first season finished airing, my friend told me how amazing it was. He didn't go into much detail, he knows how I feel about spoilers. I appreciate him for that. But anyway, he goes on praising the show, or I think the manga, he's a reader. And I find it a bit odd. I told him the show is okay, but not the best out there. The action was cool, but not MAPPA. The story is also okay, but left a lot to be desired. The main character is a two-dimensional that can think for himself other than I wanna kill this dude like an anime character edgelord. Even though we get other cool characters like Ashelat or Canute, who used to be a feeble child grown into an actual leader, the fact that we follow the mind of a stupid kid is beyond me. It felt weird for him to be this passionate about something that has such obvious flaws. I told him that. You know what he said? Well, yeah, I agree. Which is cool of him, but he did say it'll get better. And I always hate that expression. The first 1000 episodes are dog shit, but it'll be good in like episode 2056. What, am I supposed to watch a decade of content? I took up to the World Wide Web and this same exact thing actually pops up. People hated Thorfinn. But then a few scrolls down, the second line is always, he doesn't know. What do I not know? He doesn't know.
What do I not know? Tell me.
But yeah, I trusted my friends, crossed my fingers, and told myself that perhaps he was right. Maybe it'll be worth it if I watch the next season. A few years passed and the second season finally came. I actually lied in here. I did try reading a few chapters after the first season, but it didn't interest me enough. Thorfinn is still unlikable, but instead of an edgelord, he feels more like a vanilla ice cream. The first few episodes, I was still not impressed. And the other main character, Einar, while not bad, isn't what I would stay to watch either. Still, I guess I don't mind so much watching something that's passable for my lunchtime. To give a little bit of recap, Thorfinn's father, whom he respected, Thors, was killed by Ashelat in an unfair manner. Thorfinn was furious and made up his mind to avenge his father. But, of course, he failed. He's a kid. So the next thing he does is just be Ashelat's hand in his army until he's strong enough to kill Ashelat. Stupid, I know. Then Ashelat joins Canute, which led to a subplot of Canute's character arc. But in the end, it all ends with Ashelat killing King Sweyn, Canute killing Ashelat, Thorfinn losing his years of target, throwing a last effort at Canute, which failed. A year passed, Einar, whose village got raided, lost his family in it and became a slave after, met with another slave, Thorfinn. This is where season 2 starts. And while I would say this is a little faster than the manga, the plot as a whole is still so slow. You know what they do in the first 2 episodes? Cut trees. No, not metaphorically, they literally cut trees. I mean, of course, it slowly builds up problems, planting seeds for the next problem, the next arc. Like how there is prejudice from others not seeing them on the same level. Or on the contrary, how despite everything, there are some people that still uphold some moral code. There is a lot of back and forth. Good things, bad things, sometimes they solve themselves. Similar to how life would go on. This anime is a slice of life, my favorite cup of tea. A thing I would like to take a focus in is Thorfinn's behavior. He is a blank canvas, a vanilla ice cream. He's a guy that has no care in the world, not in a good way. He doesn't care if he dies, doesn't care if he gets beaten up, not even caring for his own rights. He barely talks, has no ambition left, and he looks like he needs a shave so bad. That is until sometime later he was confronted, or the better words, played by some mercs. They leave cuts over his body, but he didn't even flinch. He has this nihilistic view that it doesn't matter if he dies, that nothing good ever comes up when he's alive. He was saved by the boss named Snake, but before leaving him alone, Snake threw a pretty hefty bloodlust that activates his fight or flight instinct. Cool scene, whatever. Snake told him,
ほれ見ろトルフィン。お前の体は生きたいって言ってるぞ。
which planted the seeds of doubt in Thorfinn. The subplot for Einar also further waters that seed. Einar hates warriors as they are the ones who raided and murdered his family. Einar asks about Thorfinn's past and he tells the truth. This pushes him to attempt to kill Thorfinn while he's in a pretty terrible nightmare from his warrior days. But he stopped that thought and woke him up instead. After that, we get another look at Thorfinn not respecting his own life. But slowly, we also learn that it's not baseless. The nightmares that haunt him and his worldview actually correlate with each other. He told Einar that he killed lots of people, not unlike the ones who killed his family. Though, interestingly, never once did he say that he wants to die himself. Anyway, I would like to think that this is what pisses Einar off the most. Einar's ideology clashes with his, saying that it's not like he is the one that killed them, saying that his nihilistic view is spoiled, that the fact that they can have these little moments chatting together is because someone has kept them alive. Thorfinn thanked Einar, which also calmed him down as well. There are a lot more little moments that fit into these plots and subplots. The two became friends, Thorfinn opens up more, although he's not still over his past. He has doubts, but is a better character now. Their friendship seems great, but it wasn't until Thorfinn starts having doubts not only in him, but also in his nightmares starting to tangle his friend in, did things start to ramp up. He woke up from a nightmare of him seeing his younger self approaching a young kid that looks like Einar. It's interesting because it makes sense as a progression in his psyche. You must first love yourself to love others. Sun Tzu or something. He just solved that loving oneself problem, which brings him to another, loving others. But I would say it's not about the loving others part for him. It's more about because he loves others, he is afraid that he, the one that believes himself to be a deplorable guy, will just hurt others. I think that's what the dream is about. He opens up to Einar about Askeladd, both thinking that it was him that appeared in Thorfinn's nightmare. So Einar could only think that maybe Thorfinn isn't over it yet, since he failed to exact revenge. I have just one unrelated line from Einar that I loved.
まあ、吹っ切れって言われて吹っ切れるようなもんじゃねえよな。
Totally unrelated, just a line that shows how much empathy Einar has. Shows got good characters, I tell you that. A lot of good scenes as well on his personal progress. He says that he's empty but only because he's already over it. He doesn't know what to do. Spherical told him,
空っぽなら何でも入るじゃろう。生まれ変わるつもりがあるならむしろ空っぽの方がいい。
Slowly he builds his character back up, but then comes a turning point. As the two make progress on the farm, the retainers are getting more and more jealous. The jealousy of the retainers made them trample the crops that the two have grown. Einar was rageful, but Thorfinn tries to convince him to just let Patr, another free man who took care of them, to investigate. Especially since Einar and Thorfinn are still slaves, thus lashing out or even accusing a free man of a crime will easily dip them in a bad position. Einar didn't listen. The retainer kept mocking them, which snaps Einar. But interestingly, Thorfinn threw the first punch that broke the man's jaw. Even he was taken aback, then receives a hefty punch that knocks him out for the whole fight, which folds into one of the greatest scenes and a turning point in the show. This scene is basically metaphorical, similar to the nightmares that I've already explained, but tuned up to 11. His dream started with a peaceful set, only immediately broken by his view of killing a young Einar. And I'm not talking about him seeing another him, it's his point of view shoving a knife down Einar's throat. Spooky, scary stuff. Thorfinn was trembling when he saw his friend's face, but then his father came and apologized, told him,
守るための力だったんだ。教えなければいけないことがたくさんあったのに。
answering his father's self-blame. Interestingly, the man who bet no eye in killing accepted that it was his guilt to carry.
これは
すまなかった。
俺のしたことなんだ。
Before being dragged to the depths, his father finally made him realize.
誰にも敵などいないんだ。傷つけて良いものなどどこにもいない。
Which is interesting because this is all in his mind. The figure of the father he sees is merely a construct of his conscience. Listening to the speech means that he himself realized that on his own. Being aware of his vile, evil, and wretched doings in the early days is what drags him down, which will never happen in his younger years if he stayed ignorant. Falling into a deep chasm, he tried to stop by clawing at the rocks, which stripped his nails. He kept falling and falling until he stopped only at the end, thus seeing what lies deep down. Killing and laughter in a sea of blood. Unending death kept them going after being cut and decapitated. Thinking he's in Valhalla, he recognizes the man sitting in the column laughing.
ようご苦さんだ。
Ashelat explains what this place is, a place where everyone is your enemy. The exact belief of the young, ignorant Thorfinn would have. This place is a metaphor for his immature belief and the weight it brings. And the reason why he's back in this place is because he just once chose violence, parallel to what he would choose back then. That's why his consciousness dragged him back here.
戻ってきた。情けない。俺はつくづく成長しない人間だ。
I personally think that he has grown. The fact that he can accept his fault for throwing a fit and become vulnerable in return is something that his younger self wouldn't be able to do. Metaphorically, again, because that's what his conscience say, what he realizes, he thinks that he is still a denizen of this part, in the form of the corpses trying to drag him back. But he himself still tries to keep them away. This contradiction is actually what happened in his subconscious, of what he wants and the guilt that holds him back, making him think that he has no right to such freedom. At least until Ashelat revealed that they are the people that he has killed in cold blood. His empathy overpowers his will to live. Instead of getting away, he remorses their dead lives, saying his regrets and even crying for them, either for them or for his own guilt. Ashelat then acts as sort of a guide for what he wants. He wants out of this rageful life. Ashelat beats the other that tries to drag him down and said,
そいつらをぶら下げたまま登れ登れ
telling that his fight is to climb out there, to become a true warrior, which becomes a push for Thorfinn to climb back up and gain back his consciousness. I think it's very interesting, not to mention realistic, how he has this internal problem. The conflict is that he is now in search of himself, yet the guilt drags him down, making him think that he has no right to do so. He thinks that both are mutually exclusive, that finding what he wants in life means disconnecting from the past, and thus he sins entirely. When it's not the case. To carry your guilt, you need to accept that you've made a mistake first. You have to first move on and grow before you can realize your mistakes and accept them. But the struggle and the conflict are always real, whether you're a fictional character or not. Moving on in life is some sort of an atonement as well, as long as you still carry that baggage with you. Thorfinn is on that stage. He did a lot of despicable things that he did not take the responsibility for. He then loses the drive to do that and mutually his will to live. He then met Einar that woke his drive back to just move on in life. While he searches for himself at this moment, he also needs to face his past and take responsibility for it, feeling the remorse, the regret, the woes, while also trying to better himself, to find what he wants to do with his life. That's a lot of mental baggage to carry. And I think his character arc has been concluded quite dearly. When Azelat, Thorfinn's other subconscious guide, told him that his fight is to become a true warrior, it was also a throwback as well to the man he respected the most, Thors, his father. A very strong warrior yet held a very pacifist view, which he would call to be a true warrior. Back then, Thorfinn only knew that a strong warrior is someone who fights battles. Now, when he finally realizes what he needs to do to be a new man, he can easily admit his mistakes in front of Einar without the fear of being hated. He starts the path of atonement sworn off of violence. And only then did he finally able to see the golden spirit of Thors walking forward as if guiding him for the same path of a true warrior. The scene after is the retainers being told off for their prejudice towards the two. While they were accused by the master and pater, they all decided to just leave the problem in the past with no one getting hurt. That and followed by another scene of Thorfinn and Einar doing hard at farm work in the middle of the winter, which is probably the best I've seen Thorfinn as a character, in spite of the actions and battles he's been in. Thank you for watching and I'll see you later.